Welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to explore a word you use practically every day, but I bet you haven't given much thought to where it comes from the word bank.
Hmm. It really is fascinating how a word like that, something we use so often, can have a history that goes back centuries. And, the really surprising part is how much the meaning has changed over time.
Yeah. So where do we even begin with this? Did people always bank on something?
Well, the story actually begins way back with a Proto-Indo-European root,
Oh, wow.
be big, which meant to bend or to break. And that eventually evolved into the Proto-Germanic banko, and this word referred to raised surfaces, like shelves or embankments.
Okay, hold on. Bend or break? How do we get from that to a bank?
Well, it's all about kind of visualizing how the word evolved. So think about those early Germanic words, and they kind of conjure up this image of something that's solid and can support weight, like a bench.
Oh, I see. So the earliest forms of bank were really about this visual idea of something sturdy and flat.
Exactly. And that's how we get to the old High German bank, which directly led to our English word bench. And for a long time, bank and bench were basically the same word, both just referencing that simple piece of furniture.
So a bench is the ancestor of all these big financial institutions we know today. That's pretty wild.
It might seem strange now, but it makes sense when you think about how language changes along with culture. You see, back in medieval times, benches were everywhere in marketplaces, and those money changers, well, they needed somewhere to set up shop.
So you're talking about those Italian marketplaces we see in movies where those money changers are doing business right there on their benches.
That's exactly it. And in Italian, those benches were called banco, which also became the Italian word for bank. So the bench itself became a symbol of financial transactions.
Wow, so something so practical just became completely intertwined with the world of finance. But I'm guessing that this is only the beginning of the story, right?
You're right. From here, it gets even more interesting as we get into the rise of those powerful banking families and how bank went from this simple furniture to a really complex financial institution.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break and then we'll dive right back in. So we've gone from benches in the marketplace to using the word banco for financial transactions. So how did this become the huge banking institutions we know today?
Well, you can't really talk about the history of banking without talking about the Medici family in Renaissance Italy. And they weren't just influential in finance, they were patrons of art and culture, and their banking practices really shaped the financial world we know today.
The Medicis, wow, that's a name that's just synonymous with wealth and power.
Yeah.
So what did they do that was so different? Did they just have like fancier benches or something?
Well, they really took banking to a whole other level. I mean, managing the finances of a powerful family in a whole city-state is really complicated. So they needed a system to track their income and expenses really accurately.
Is that where double entry bookkeeping comes in? I've heard of it, but it always sounded a little intimidating.
Yeah, that was their big innovation, and it really changed everything because with double entry bookkeeping, every transaction is recorded twice, once as a debit and once as a credit. So it created this system of checks and balances and made financial records a lot more transparent and reliable.
So it wasn't just about keeping track of money, it was about building trust and accountability, which is something we still want from banks today.
Absolutely. And the innovations the Medicis came up with really helped turn bank from just a place to exchange money into a much more sophisticated institution, and their methods spread throughout Europe and really influenced how modern banking developed.
So did other countries just start using the Italian word banco?
Well, not quite. The word kind of changed and adapted as it spread. So the French started using bank and the Germans used bank. But the interesting thing is you can still see that original bench in those words. It's like the actual object turned into this powerful concept.
It's amazing how a word can hold so much history. We started with benches, and now we're talking about these really powerful institutions, but the story of bank doesn't end there, right?
You're right. We use bank in so many different contexts now. You can bank on a friend or make a bank shot in pool. So how did we go from a place to store money to all these other meanings?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is there something that connects all these uses?
It's all about metaphor. So think about what a bank represents, security, reliability, and trust. We bank on a friend because we trust them, just like we trust a bank with our money.
So when I say I'm banking on you, it's like I'm saying I'm putting all my trust in you. Wow, that's a lot of pressure to put on a friend.
It is a pretty strong statement, but it really shows how that idea of a bank has become part of our language and shapes the way we talk about trust and reliance in all kinds of situations.
This has been fascinating, but I feel like there's even more to uncover when it comes to the word bank. So let's see where this deep dive takes us next. We've learned so much about the word bank, going from that simple bench to this symbol of financial power and trustworthiness. But I'm curious how bank has become a part of other parts of our lives.
Well, it's interesting how bank has really branched out, you could say, into all these different areas. Like, for example, you have the phrase riverbank, which seems pretty separate from finance, but the origin is surprisingly similar.
Yeah, unless those fish have like an underwater banking system, I don't really see the connection.
It's not about fish with checking accounts, haha. Remember that Proto-Germanic word bankto, what was used to describe those raised surfaces, and that includes like the sloping edges of a river.
Oh, okay, so a riverbank is like a bank because it's a raised piece of land, just like that original bench.
Exactly. It's still based on this idea of a strong supporting structure, and that idea shows up in other examples too, like a data bank or a memory bank.
I see, so bank has become this metaphor for any kind of storage or repository. So whether it's information or digital data or even like genetic material in a gene bank, it still has that meaning of a secure and reliable place to store valuable things.
Right. And we can't forget about bank in sports. Think about a bank shot in billiards or basketball.
Oh yeah, that awesome clink when you get the ball to bounce off the edge at just the right angle. Takes a lot of skill and strategy and maybe a little luck too.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, regardless of whether you make the shot or not, the idea of a bank shot is interesting because it shows how much we trust a bank to help us reach our goal, whether that's being successful financially or just making a tough shot.
It's really amazing how one word has become such a big part of so many parts of our lives, from a simple piece of furniture to a huge part of modern finance, and even more bank has definitely stood the test of time.
And the story is still going on. Think about the rise of online banking and neobanks. They're changing the world of finance, operating entirely online without any physical branches. It's like having a bank right there in your pocket.
But even though they're all digital, we still call them banks. So it seems like those core values we associate with the word haven't changed: security, reliability, and efficiency.
You're absolutely right. Those values were established a long time ago, back when money changers were using their benches, and they're still shaping what we expect from a bank, even in a world that's changing so quickly.
So the next time I hear someone say bank, I'll remember this incredible journey. It's taken from a humble bench to this powerful concept that affects how we think about finances, trust, and even making a great shot in pool. Who knew that a single word could have so much history and meaning?
That's what makes language so fascinating. It's constantly evolving and changing, just like our understanding of the world. And I encourage everyone listening to think about the words you use every day. You never know what surprising stories you might find.